Pressure is mounting moment by moment on Arizona Governor Jan Brewer.
The increasing pressure on Arizona Governor Jan Brewer
to decide whether to veto a landmark state law.
To veto a controversial new bill.
A controversial measure that would allow business owners
let businesses deny service
to refuse to serve gays and lesbians.
This law. I mean, where do you begin?
John McCain, Jeff Flake.
The 5 Republican candidates for governor.
Apple, American Airlines, and Marriott.
And even 3 Republican state senators who voted for the measure have all come out against this bill.
The bill attempts to create an exception
based on their religious beliefs
for people who invoke their religious beliefs. Legislation touted as a religious freedom bill.
Just a cloak for prejudice.
I believe, again, this is about protecting people of all faith, protecting religious beliefs.
Kathy Howard is defending the bill she authored.
The outcry against the bill, it's simply a political tactic.
I'm not sure I understand what she's saying there.
I don't buy the arguments on the economic impact.
This is an untenable position.
Pressure is mounting moment by moment on Arizona Governor Jan Brewer. Jan Brewer is under heavy pressure to veto a controversial new bill
because it's wrong.
Most of the business community continues to oppose it. In addition to Apple, American Airlines, Marriott, and the Arizona Super Bowl host committee, today the NBA's Phoenix Suns, the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury, as well as Intel and Delta Airlines all released statements against the bill.
The whole business community in Arizona has been galvanized by it.
Do you think she's going to?
Well, I don't know. I can't predict. It's up to her. I can't make a prediction, but there certainly has been a very big reaction to it, particularly amongst the business community, which is the base of our support.
Do you worry about the Super Bowl?
I worry about everything. I worry about everything.
Georgia Republicans in both the Georgia House and the Georgia Senate have introduced bills like the one in Arizona, almost identical, which would allow businesses to discriminate if they said they wanted to do so because of their religious beliefs. Both of those Georgia bills were debated in committee yesterday afternoon. The Senate bill in Georgia could reach the floor for a vote as early as tomorrow. And it's not even just Arizona and Georgia. Turns out these bills are like the trendy new right-wing bill all around the country. In Missouri, a Republican state senator just yesterday introduced a bill that would allow Missouri businesses claiming a religious objection to refuse to serve customers on that basis. In Ohio, a bill like this has also been introduced there in the House. In Nevada, a bill like this is making its way through committee. Same story in Idaho, where a Republican bill has just been moved back to committee. Republicans in Oklahoma have proposed a bill like this. Republicans in Hawaii have proposed a bill like this. Republicans in Mississippi have already passed a bill like this through the state Senate, and it's now on the way to the Mississippi House. Republicans in Utah are trying to pass this measure as an amendment. Republicans in Oregon are trying to get it onto the ballot. Republicans are trying to pass legislation like this everywhere in the country and at lightning speed. Republicans were really sure of themselves on this issue for a really long time. They knew campaigning against the threat of gay people having equal rights was great politics for them. Sunlight made them grow. They wanted to be known for that in these issues. When they got national attention to their anti-gay fights, they felt like it made them stronger, not weaker on this issue. Being anti-gay used to unite Republican politicians. It worked for them. It was such a reliable vote getter, they used to put it on the ballot because they thought it would have coattails, even in national elections. Where did all these nearly identical discrimination bills come from all over the country all at once? Joining us now is Dana Liebelson. She's a reporter with Mother Jones Magazine. She's been doing some great work covering these so-called religious freedom bills in Arizona and in Georgia and around the country. Ms. Liebelson, thanks very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been reporting on these bills that have been popping up all across the country. Are you able to tell where these are all coming from, or is everybody just having the same idea all at once?
You know, it's funny, a lot of the different lawmakers are pointing to other lawmakers saying, hey, I got the idea from Ohio, I got the idea from Tennessee. But if you dig into this a little bit more, I think you find that there's a lot of actually national conservative groups who are kind of working, pushing this legislation, in some cases even writing the legislation. And although we haven't found sort of one group that's behind all of these bills, I think there's definitely a correlation.
It seemed, just watching this from a national perspective, it seemed to me like Kansas was the place that was most likely to pass it. There's been kind of a purge in Kansas legislature where they got rid of a lot of Republicans who weren't on the conservative side of the Republican Party. Obviously, Sam Brownback has been a crusading anti-gay Republican politician for all of his time in public life. I thought Kansas would do it. Kansas balked and decided not to. Arizona's very close. Can you tell how close they are in Georgia? Are they likely to move it as far as Arizona has?
Sure. Well, I think with the Arizona bill, at first people didn't really realize what the Arizona bill did because it doesn't specifically say anything about same-sex couples the way the Kansas bill does. However, as people sort of look more into the language of the bill in Arizona, they realized that it could be used to sort of justify any kind of discrimination. So once we saw what happened with Arizona, I think when the Georgia bill came around, it got national attention much quicker. And, you know, last I heard, one of the representatives who introduced that bill in Kansas was, in Georgia was thinking of offering amendments to it to make it less discriminatory.
In terms of the overall idea of like the title of these bills and the ways they're being marketed, a lot of states have bills explicitly protecting religious freedom on the books, above and beyond, of course, the federal constitutional protections for religious freedom that we all enjoy. The idea of doing this through state legislation isn't a brand new legal concept. What is it about these laws that is novel? What is different about these new measures?
Right, so people who defend these bills say, hey, there's nothing new to see here. These are the same old Religious Freedom Restoration Acts we've always had. But in fact, you know, the bills that we've seen proposed in the last couple months have this very distinct provision where they allow people, and in some cases, like the case in Arizona, businesses, to use religion as a defense in a private lawsuit. So to give you an example of how that might play out, you know, let's say you live in a state where it's illegal to fire someone because they're gay. Now, if one of these bills passes, that company could turn around and say, oh, hey, I think homosexuality is a sin. Therefore, you know, I'm going to fire you and I don't need to abide by this law. So, you know, that lawsuit provision is a big deal.
And I know in some of these cases, in some of the states where they've been considering this, the lawsuit provision works in such a way that not only can you not sue somebody for discriminating against you, but if you do, you have to pay their legal fees as well as your own. So it's almost a punishment for even complaining about being discriminated against. This is fascinating stuff and a fast-moving story. Dana Liebelson, reporter for Mother Jones, thanks very much for being here tonight. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks.